Welcome to Psych Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Rabin, a licensed clinical psychologist. If you are a mental health professional, student in the social science field, or just interested in psychology and mental health, this podcast is for you. Although topics discussed on this podcast are similar to therapy, Psych Talk is not a replacement for therapy and is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Psych Talk, and thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Today I have a very special guest with me, Simone Knego, who is a speaker, author, and podcast host. So Simone, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'm super excited to dive into our discussion today, but before we do that, can you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, what you do, and anything else you want to share?
So, yeah, absolutely. I first and foremost, I am a mom of 6 children. I've been married to my husband for 32 years. I am a keynote speaker, author, and podcast host. I have a podcast with my 23-year-old daughter, which I guess is pretty novel because
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." But that's me. I mean, my whole life is about helping women build confidence from the inside out because that is something that I struggled with for the majority of my life until I had a moment that said, you don't need to worry about what anybody else thinks. You are doing amazing things in the world and you need to take credit for it.
hmm I love that. And so, going off exactly what you just said about helping women with their confidence, you recently published your second book, Real Confidence, a simple guide to go from unsure to unshakable. So, can you tell us a little bit about your book and ultimately what inspired you to write it?
So the book is based on my real method, and that method comes from my experience. Well, it was kind of a strange experience, but in 2015, I was asked to do something completely out of my comfort zone, which was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. I live in Florida at sea level. I have 16 steps in my house. I've gone camping twice, but I said yes because I knew that I needed to get out of my own way. I was really
Mhm.
struggling at the time. And so after climbing Kilimanjaro, which we can talk about more later if you want to, but after
I would
climbing
love to.
Kilimanjaro, what I did was I looked back and said, okay, how did I get from point A to point B? And because that moment really changed my life, and maybe it sounds cliche, you climbed a mountain and now you're transformed, but it really did because I was able to look back and say, okay, these are the things I really struggled with. This is how I moved forward. And so my real method stands for, obviously, real is an acronym, and it's respect yourself, embrace your failures, ask yourself what you want, and live without limits. And so those 4 pieces really helped me like see, okay, yeah, this is what you're capable of. And why are you worrying about what anybody else thinks? And why are you comparing
Mhm.
yourself to other people? And so that's the whole book is really based on that method. And it's a very vulnerable book. I tell very
Mhm.
personal stories and I put it out there because I want other women to understand that, okay, yes, you can look great on paper, right?
Mhm.
But what are you really about? What is happening in your life? And so I wanted to make sure that people understood that no, this didn't happen overnight. These are things
Mhm.
that I've worked on for the pretty much my entire life to figure out who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I would love to hear anything about
Yeah.
climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. That's such a unique and cool experience. And mostly my thought goes to like, who invited you to do
Yeah.
that? And like, why, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, actually, a friend of ours invited me. So the way it actually happened was he invited my husband,
Okay.
and my husband basically said, no, thank you. Call Simone. He's like, I'm
I
not
love
gonna
it.
sleep in a tent at, whatever. I mean, the summit is 19,341 feet. The last night you're at about 16,000, 15,000 something feet.
hmm
And he's like, no, thank you. That is not for me.
Not gonna do it.
And yeah, no. And so, he's a sport for most things, but
hmm
that was not. And now he's like, I wish I would have. I'm like, yeah, that's why we do these things.
hmm
You don't go back and say, I wish I would have. But so he called me and I said yes. And I've had so many people ask me, why did you say yes?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me said yes because I was the yes girl. I was the people
Mm-hmm.
pleaser. I didn't want to say no because I didn't want to not be invited to something again, and I didn't want to like, you know, this whole thing was about raising money for the Livestrong Foundation. So if I didn't
Mm.
do it, like, how does that make me look?
Yeah.
And but the other part of it was that I really understood at that point that I was struggling and
Mm-hmm.
I was performing, right? I looked great on the outside, but really struggling on the inside. And so it probably wouldn't have mattered if someone would have invited me to something different. I
Mm-hmm.
needed something in that moment. And yes, this was a huge thing to do, but
Yeah.
it really was life changing. And, there were 16 of us, and I didn't know anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, I flew to Tanzania by myself.
Wow.
And I think one of the most interesting parts was not only were we, you know, a team meeting there, but I also had a roommate and a tent mate that I had never met before. So we're sleeping in this two-person tent, and we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And she's amazing, and she came to my book launch, like all the things.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's I always love to say, do the things you think you can't, because that's where
Mm-hmm.
the biggest transformation happens. That's where the biggest growth happens. And that's exactly what happened. And so,
Yeah.
yes, it was probably one of the hardest things. I mean, I'm a mom of six, so there's been a lot of hard things. But it's one of obviously the most physically challenging thing that I've ever done, but
Mm-hmm.
also the most mentally challenging because that was really the biggest thing that I needed to overcome was to really say, okay, you can do this, one foot in front of
Yeah.
the other. No matter what the voice inside my head was saying to me.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like an incredible experience. And I mean, I was going to say once in a lifetime, and I'm assuming most people that climb Mount Kilimanjaro don't do it multiple times. I could be wrong on that.
I, yeah, I don't think a lot of people do
Yeah.
unless, I mean, trust me, the porters who are the most amazing humans on this planet, I mean, I think that was like leadership at its core,
Hmm.
watching these people who would basically pack up the camp, carry all the stuff. We would start doing our climb and they would come up behind us, they would pass us, they would get to the camp, they would set everything up again, they would cook a meal for us, like have
Hmm.
everything ready, like our tent
Wow.
was ready. And we're like, okay, we barely made it. And they're like celebrating us. And I was
Mhm.
like, we should be celebrating you. I mean,
Yeah.
you did all of the things for us. So, I mean, it was so other than that, I think most people say, okay, one and done.
One and done. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. That's what I would imagine, but I didn't actually know.
Yeah. And I have not looked at statistics about it, but I would
Yeah.
imagine one and done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, was that the pivotal experience that made you become so passionate about confidence, or was confidence something that you, I don't know, were passionate about thinking about before then and that kind of like pushed you to talk more about it? Like, where did your passion for confidence come in this timeline, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, definitely that was the pivotal experience. There was another experience that happened to me where I was at this women's event and I was with a group of my closest friends and
Hmm.
I had been performing for so long that I didn't even, I don't want to say I didn't know who I was anymore, but I
Hmm.
really struggled to understand who I was. And so this video came on, this Colby Calais video, Try,
Yep.
about peeling back the layers and really showing your authentic self. And I started crying. And my friends were like, what is happening? I mean, I hadn't
Oh,
cried in years. I mean,
oh, wow.
seriously, hadn't cried in years. I have six kids. I've got to hold it together. I've got to do all
Hmm.
the things. And so they were like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, what is going on? And then I like said all the things. I said, this is what I struggle with. These are the things that I'm
Yeah.
dealing with. And they were like, we had no idea. And what I realized in that moment was that when you share what you're going through, other women are willing to share the same, or other people are willing to share the same.
Yeah.
I understood that nobody wants to be the first one, but I'm okay being the first one to say,
Hmm.
okay, this sucks. This is what I'm really struggling with. And
Mm.
so that was a big moment. But then Kilimanjaro was kind of the defining moment, which said, like, okay, you can do anything that you want to do as long as you put in the work, but decide what
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah. I love that. And thank you for sharing that because what I heard in that, and tell me if this is an incorrect assumption, that you spent a lot of your life really like masking or kind of hiding parts of yourself to the point that maybe you didn't even know what those parts were.
100%. And that it kind of took all of that, though, like those two moments. I mean, they
Hmm.
were pivotal moments in my life for me to look back and say, okay, why have I been living my life like this? And
Yeah.
um, when I was in high school, I had an abusive boyfriend, and something that my husband knew about it, my kids knew about it, but it wasn't something that I talked about on
Hmm.
a regular basis. It was like, oh, that's in the past, or,
Hmm.
how did you let that happen to you, kind of thing. And so I, again, I stuffed it down. And so what I realized, especially in that first moment with at the women's event, that wait, I'm not alone in my struggles, and I need
Hmm.
to share what I've gone through or what I'm going through, because not only does it help me, it helps the other people around me. And
Yeah.
so that was really, important for me moving forward to be able to say, okay, we have to talk about things, because if we just don't say a word, it doesn't get better.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. And I think you also just highlighted like the power of vulnerability, but also the
Mm,
power of community in the sense of like, okay, when somebody starts opening up and you're surrounded by people that care about you, they're going to show up for you, but then they're also going to feel more safe to talk about their struggles. And I think a lot of times when we're struggling, we feel like we're the only ones. And
mm.
that's part of why we don't share things. But even if two people aren't going through the same struggle, we all have struggle, and just stuffing it down is not helping us in the long run at all.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You don't know what someone else is going through until you start a conversation. And
Mm.
so often we're not willing to start that conversation because we're so worried about what will other people think, or, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
am I going to be judged? And I'll tell you, first and foremost, if we're worrying about what other people think, people are not thinking about us. They have their own lives to live.
Yep.
We get so focused on that, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to think? They're so busy, they're not thinking about
Hmm.
us, right?
Yeah.
And then, but what I've found 100%, not even 99%, is that when I share anything that I've gone through, I'll have other women raise their hands and say, oh my gosh, I've been through something very similar, or I had the same
Hmm.
situation, or my daughter's going through something very similar. And so for me, it's so important to just put it out there. And
Yeah.
if someone's going to judge me, then they're not my people, and I'm not worried
I say
about
that all the
it.
time. Like,
Yeah.
if somebody's not going to accept you for who you are, they're not your people. They're not
Yeah.
people that you want to be around.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because we want to surround ourselves with people that lift us up, not people that are going to pass
Yeah.
judgment.
And we have to be that person too. So that was
Hmm.
the one of my biggest realizations, is that, and that, big part of my real method was about self-respect, is that we need to lift ourselves up. Like, we need to be our own best friend, right? I mean,
Hmm.
we would never talk to our best friend like we talk to ourselves. So
Yeah.
we need to stop the negativity with ourselves, because again, we wouldn't do it to other people. So why do we do it
Hmm.
to ourselves? Because we're going to live with ourselves for the rest of our lives. Like, we should treat ourselves with respect, 100% across the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, circling back to your real method, because you talked about it, obviously it's in the title of your book, you just mentioned it again. I wanted to give you time to kind of expand on
Mm,
the real method, what it
yeah.
is. I know you broke down the acronym, but I would love to have a conversation about like what each component entails or anything you want to share about it, obviously without giving too much away because
Yeah.
I want people to buy your
No,
book.
I mean, there's a lot more to the book than just going through the real method, because again, I think in anything in life, it's the stories that really leave the
Hmm.
impression. I mean, you can give me statistics all day long, but if I don't have something to connect it with, then it doesn't make a difference. So,
Yeah.
um, the first part, respect yourself, because I think self-respect is the foundation for everything we do. I remember as a kid being taught to respect my elders, my
Hmm.
peers, but never once do I remember being taught that the most important person to respect is myself. Like
Yeah.
setting boundaries, being able to say no without feeling guilty, right? Self-care, so many things that are involved there that, and again, I had great parents, but
Hmm.
that wasn't part of the conversation. It was like, oh, you need to respect yourself. No means no, like all the different things. And I didn't understand that. And
Yeah.
so we talk a lot about, going into a room and demanding respect, right? But if we
Hmm.
don't demonstrate it to ourselves, how can we expect other people to respect us? So it really
Absolutely.
is about demonstrating it to yourself. Like, yes, I am not going to accept this. I am not going to put up with this. I am saying no to this. This is not. I even had something today where someone reached out to me to ask me, and it's a dumb example, but they said, because I'm for my keynote speeches, I'm including books with it for this year because of my book coming out.
Hmm.
And and she had asked if I would include more, and I said, or for free, like, can I include more for
Okay.
free? And I said, actually, I can't because I don't set the price like my publisher does, which means that
Yeah.
I'm going to be paying for copies of your book beyond what I'm already giving you.
Yeah.
And, in the past, I would have been like, what do I do? What do I do?
Hmm.
And I was like, thank you so much for asking that question, but I can't do it. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
that's it. And I don't feel bad about it. I'm just like, this is the reality.
Yeah.
And, but in the past, I would have felt because I didn't understand how to set boundaries. And,
Hmm.
a big part of my high school relationship that affected everything was really that I didn't understand what self-respect was because I was really never taught that. And again, like not against my parents, it just wasn't something at the time where we really talked about mental health and taking care of yourself.
Hmm.
It just wasn't part of the discussion.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Like, I don't think I've ever been explicitly told, or even like implicitly told, like growing up, you have to respect yourself
Mm,
as well. Because I agree with you. It was definitely like respect your elders, respect your teachers, respect like your parents and
yes.
professionals and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm trying. This is gonna like prompt some deep reflection, like
Yeah.
reflecting back onto my childhood to see if I ever received those messages.
Because it's a really interesting thing as a child when you hear you need to respect these people and then they
Mhm.
cross the line or the boundary of something and you don't know what to do because all you've been taught is that, oh, you have to respect them.
Mhm.
So I think that if you understand that you need to respect yourself first, then that would change a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so that's the
Okay,
R
that's
and
the
the
R.
real method. Okay,
Yes. Okay.
on to E.
Embrace your failures. I mean, this is a hard one because
Yeah.
for me, for so long, failure was a stop sign. You fail at
Mm.
something, you don't get back up. I was supposed to be a doctor. That was the plan. My parents were both physicians. My
Mm.
sister is a doctor. My husband's actually a doctor. But I went, I took organic chemistry, and guess what? I failed it. I took it again and got a D. Well, pretty hard to go to medical school without organic
Organic
chemistry.
chemistry. Hmm.
Yes, it's pretty
Absolutely.
big one. And like that was a failure. Okay, what do I do? And I said to my dad, I want to be an actress, and he was like, accounting it is. And so that's what I did because he was like, you're good at math, like you're not going to make money, like do it, do accounting. So I got a bachelor's and master's in accounting, and I've had many failures over my life. But it took me a long time to realize that failure isn't a stop sign; it's
Hmm.
learning. Like the majority, I don't want to say majority, all successful people have failed multiple times to get to where they are. And however you
Yeah.
define success, it really is about understanding that it's a learning process. So when you fail at something, it's not because you did a horrible job or there's something wrong with you. It's because you're learning. And so just
Hmm.
because you failed at something doesn't make you a failure.
Hmm.
And again, it's a hard thing to take. And in the moment, it really is about feeling all the emotions, right? I mean, you can
Hmm.
be angry. pissed off, scream at whoever you want, like whatever you're feeling in the moment. I don't want to say scream
Mhm.
at people because I don't like to do that, um, but understanding that you feel the emotion and then you say, okay, that's done. What did I learn? How do I move forward? And
Mhm.
I didn't do that for years because I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. And
Yeah.
that's so not true. Like it literally is taking a test and moving forward.
Mhm. I love that because I think so many people, myself included, struggle with viewing failure as a stop sign. I love that analogy. Or just like it's very black and white. Well, if I fail, I'll never be able to
Mm,
succeed, which is not true. And
yeah.
I've also found that a lot of people, because of fear of failure, then don't try. And this kind of goes back to your whole experience with Kilimanjaro. Like, if you had the mindset of like, there's no way I would be able to do that, well, then I'm not even going to try because if I don't try, then I can't fail. And that's not a helpful way to live life either.
Yeah. If you're not doing, you have to get out of your comfort zone. So
Mhm.
it's about, I like to say trying. A lot of people are like, trying isn't enough, it's doing. Okay, if you're trying, you're doing to me. So,
Mhm.
but like that idea of I could sit on the couch all day long, but I wouldn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that is uncomfortable to
Mhm.
just do, I don't know, the minimum or just sit there and say, oh, what if? I don't want to go through life and think like, what if I would have?
Mhm.
I want to be able to try the things and say, okay, that didn't work. What am I going to do next? Instead of saying, oh, yeah, well, I never tried anything. And
Yeah,
it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to fail at things. It's not, there's
absolutely.
nothing about it that's easy. But again, what you said before is that about that we think that we're alone, right?
Mhm.
And we are not alone in any of this. So when
Mhm.
we're failing at something, trust me, every other person on the planet is failing at something too. So take comfort in
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. We're all in this together. Failure
Yes,
and success.
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So then on to A.
Ask yourself what you want. Okay, for women, this is probably the hardest thing.
Okay.
Um, I don't think it's as hard for men, but definitely for women, it's a really hard thing to say, okay, what do you want? And for me, it was incredibly hard, right? Because so I'm gonna be an empty nester this year, which is
Mhm.
crazy to think. So I've had kids in my house for 30 straight years, right?
Wow.
So that's huge. And for a lot of people, when they put their needs in front of somebody else's, they feel guilty about that.
Mhm.
But my response is that you're a better person when you figure out what you need so you can do more or help
Mhm.
more. And I mean, that was so much of my journey is understanding that, okay, that isn't taking away from anybody or anything. It's actually adding because when I show
Mhm.
up, I'm so much more involved and excited to be there instead of like, oh my gosh, do I have to do this again?
Mhm.
And it's a big thing to say, okay, what do you want? Like, are you in the career that you want? I'm not saying
Yeah.
quit your job tomorrow, but
Yeah.
really taking a look and saying like, am I doing it for everybody else? Are there things that I'm doing for myself? And
Mhm.
I always love to say, think back to the little kid who wanted to be the astronaut, the
Mhm.
actress, the professional soccer player, whatever it was, that kid still exists.
Yeah.
So, and again, it doesn't have to be about your career, but
Mhm.
other things that you do in your life. So if you love soccer, trust me, there are tons of places you can play soccer. If you love doing art and you put that aside because you're raising your kids, take an art class. There's so
Mhm.
many things that you can do to fill your cup. And again, it makes you better. It makes you feel better. It makes you interact better. It makes everything better.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as you were talking and talking about the challenges, especially women face with regard to like asking themselves what they want, I reflected back on what you shared earlier with the Colby Clay song and, not really knowing who you are. And I think, especially for women, um, a lot of times we take on roles that other people expect us to.
Mm,
So mother, caregiver, um, I don't know, insert any role here. And so I imagine that not knowing who we are makes that question even harder as well, because it's like, well, you know, I don't know what I want because I don't know who I am because I'm wearing all these hats of other roles of people that, of what they expect me to be. And in that, I've lost myself. So I love the idea of like reflecting back on like, what did I want as a little kid? Or what did I used to do? Oh, I used to love art. Oh, okay. I haven't picked up a paintbrush in 10 years. Why is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really interesting process to kind of go through that and say, there's so many women that I've talked to that say, well, nobody's ever asked me that before.
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm asking you, what do you want? Okay, well, I don't know. Where do I start? And the other really interesting thing when I climbed Kilimanjaro, I had a bunch of women say to me, "Oh, I could never do that." And my response was, "Well, do you want to? Would you want
Hmm.
to?" No,
Yeah.
I would never want to do that. I said, okay, well, use those words because your words become your reality. And so when you say you can't do something, your brain believes that you can't do things. And
Hmm.
that's not true. You can do anything you want to do if you put in the work. But as soon as you start telling yourself that you can't do it, that's what you believe. And so
Hmm.
for me, it's so important that we're very careful on how we talk about things because I mean, I know for myself, like I talked down to myself for years. The things I
Hmm.
said to myself, the things I said about myself, I mean, it's crazy in front of my
Yeah.
kids, all of those kinds of things because I didn't realize like I was on just on replay, right? Okay,
Hmm.
this is what I'm used to saying to myself. Like you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not skinny enough. And so one of the things I want to share is that I have this little mindset hack that I uh, learned before I climbed Kilimanjaro because I used it a lot on Kilimanjaro. And very creative title. It's called Control Alt Delete. Um, so back in the day, it was how we would reset a frozen computer.
Yep.
And now it brings up Task Manager. I have no idea what that does, but it does something. But sometimes our minds freeze too, right? We
Hmm.
spiral in self-doubt. We get caught in that comparison game. And we don't even know we're doing it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so for me, for so many years, the way I would say things to myself, I didn't know I was talking bad about myself or talking bad to myself. And control is about awareness. So,
Hmm.
what's the story that you're telling yourself? Is it real? Is it helpful? Most of the time, the answer is no, right?
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're saying really negative things to ourselves that we would never say to our best friend, as I said before. Alt is about alternative. Tell yourself a better story.
Hmm.
Instead of saying you can't do something, yes, you can. And then, for me, it's like, yeah, watch me. Instead
Hmm.
of asking yourself, oh, what if I fail? How about when I succeed? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
again, what you say to and there's so much studies, research on this, and I know
Hmm.
that it's how you talk to yourself. Like it really does affect your reality. So it's telling yourself a better story.
Hmm.
And lastly, delete the habits and beliefs that don't serve you. Delete the comparison game. Why are we
I love
comparing
it.
ourselves? The other person doesn't even know we're doing it, right? We're the only one
Correct.
negatively affected by it. Delete the idea that you're not good enough.
Hmm.
Delete the idea that you need to wait until you feel ready. I love to say that waiting until you feel ready is like waiting for IKEA instructions to actually make sense. It is not going to happen, right? So do it anyways. Do it scared, do the things you think you can't. It's so
Hmm.
important because that's where growth happens. And
Yeah.
so I use that all the time. I mean, I don't need it as much, but confidence is a skill. It is not something you're
Yeah.
born with. It's not something other people have and you don't. It's something that you work on like any other skill. So,
Hmm.
you don't go to the gym one time and oh my gosh, you're like super strong. You
Yeah.
don't take one Spanish lesson and now, you're
You're
fluent. It
fluent.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen. So it's the same thing with your mindset. It's the same thing with confidence. You need to work on it all the time. And just because I am confident doesn't mean that voice inside my head goes away. I call it the
Hmm.
what if whisper. What if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're
Yeah.
not enough? And so it's having the tools to say, I hear you and I don't agree. and
Hmm.
being able to take that next step anyways.
I love that. Control, Alt, Delete. I write
Yep.
that down.
It's
Mm.
a
And
simple
then,
one, but it
yeah,
works.
but it works. And it's a way that people can kind of remember what they
Yes.
need to do because it can be really hard when your
Mm,
mind is being really, really mean to you, when you're really struggling. It can be really hard to grab at those coping skills to help
yeah.
you get out of it. But if you can remember Control, Alt, Delete, okay,
Yep.
at least let's break that down. Okay, what
Yes.
control?
Yep.
Um, what's the
Become aware
situation?
of the story
Yeah.
that you're telling yourself because it is 99.9% of the time not real, right? I mean, we
Hmm.
have fear for a reason, right? I mean, back in
Absolutely.
the caveman days, like in case something was coming at us. But now we create something bigger than it typically is because of what we see on social media. Or
Hmm.
we look at what other people are doing. We're like, oh, why isn't that my life? Well, because that's not their life either.
Yeah.
Like we make up these stories and they're not real. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then your L.
Mm. Live without limits. So we limit ourselves from the minute we wake up until the second we go to bed, right? We
Hmm.
tell her, again, it's a lot of it is the words we use. Um, for me, and obviously there's societal stuff as well, but we like to tell ourselves that we're not capable of stuff. So when I was younger and I was a stay-at-home mom, when people would say, "Oh, what do you do?" Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom.
Hmm.
I'm just Rob's wife. I'm just a volunteer, basically justifying my existence.
Hmm.
And we're not just anything or anybody. Like everything we do makes a difference every single day. And we need to give ourselves credit for that. Sometimes it's hard because we have people on the outside that will make us feel differently. So I was at
Yeah.
this event and I was sitting next to this woman who was the CEO for this big company. And
Hmm.
of course, small talk. And she said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom." And her response was, "Well, I can't imagine anything worse." And I was like, "Okay, great. I really feel good about myself right now,
Oh
right?"
my
I mean,
gosh.
and so I'm already in the mindset where I feel like, okay, I'm not making a difference in the world. It was a time where I was really
Yeah.
struggling. And then that's what she said to me. I was like, perfect. Okay, great. Like, now I'm sitting next to her for the next hour. What am I going to say to her? I don't even
Yeah.
remember what happened after that because I was so, upset by the whole thing because really,
Gosh.
and, my answer to that now is that for me, again, being a stay-at-home mom, I was for that of all the things I've done in my life,
Hmm.
that was the most important
Hmm.
because raising good humans was the most important thing I could do. And I've done a lot of different things, but that is and having six kids and understanding that and so I look back and think I never say I wish I would have,
Hmm.
but that was probably a moment I wish I would have like said seriously.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
But again,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, so when it comes to living without limits, like we have to really understand that we we can do anything. And
Hmm.
we need to stop looking at ourselves and saying that we're not capable of it, that, let that go. Like you're capable of anything you want to do.
Yeah. I love that so much. And I love how you have already given so many concrete tools and tips. Like you started with talking about boundary setting. You talked about, self-talk and then the control alt delete. Are there other practical concrete strategies that you have found helpful when it comes to building confidence, bettering your self-esteem, or even maybe starting points for people that are struggling?
Number one, positive affirmations. So
Okay.
I, if you would have asked me before Kilimanjaro, I would have told you that doesn't work. Like, that's ridiculous. You're going to talk to yourself and you're going to tell yourself how great you are. And I didn't understand it at all. Right.
Yeah.
But what I've realized is that it really does affect how you think about yourself.
Hmm.
So if we can tell ourselves all day long how, that we're not good enough, why can't we tell ourselves a different story?
Yeah.
So I do mirror moments every morning where, depending on what I'm doing, that reaffirms that, okay, you've got this. Like
Hmm.
you're doing this today and this is going to be amazing because we have a choice every morning when we wake up. We can choose to be miserable or we can choose to be happy.
Yeah.
I was at my daughter's apartment. So the daughter that I have the podcast with, and I came there for a big event, and it was in Nashville, the big ice storm, and everything was canceled.
Yep.
And so that was, it is what it is. Like we
Yeah.
can't control the weather. And so I can choose to be really angry about it, or I can say, okay, what am I going to do next? So
Hmm.
obviously we rescheduled stuff. But the other part was, I was stuck there for a bit and it was cold.
Yep.
She didn't have power. So the last day that I was there, like we woke up in the morning, it was 49 degrees in her apartment. And I said to her, okay, you guys need to find a friend to stay with. Like I have like
Mhm.
three options for you. And they found a friend of theirs because I was like, I have friends that have power. And I said, I'm going to go to the airport and I'm going to go standby and I'm going to go home because everything's canceled. It's going to be
Mhm.
canceled for a while. Like nothing is going to change. And my daughter was like, you're not upset? I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, again,
Yeah.
I have a choice right now to, you can't, you can't control the weather. You can't
Mhm.
control these external factors, but you can control how you respond to things. And so I wake up every morning and say, I'm not going to be miserable, right? No matter
Mhm.
what's happening, I'm going to choose to. And it's not toxic positivity. It's just saying, because trust me, I have my moments, but
Yeah.
I'm choosing to say, like, I'm not going to let this ruin my entire day or my
Mhm.
entire week or month because I have a choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. We there's something in dialectical behavioral therapy that gives different options of like when faced with a problem, what you can do. And one of the things is stay miserable. And it's not meaning to be like, oh, you're not like trying or anything, but like it's a choice we have. Like we can, life happens. We can be faced with a lot of adversity and hardships, and we can choose to sulk and be
Hmm.
miserable in it, or we can focus on the things we can control. Exactly what you did. I can't control the weather. I can't control that my daughter doesn't have power. I can't control that it's 49 degrees. I can control getting myself to the airport. So one, it's probably warmer in the airport.
Oh, it
um
was. It was great. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so nice in here.
but like I can control getting back home if, my whole plans are ruined. Like, yeah, I can be upset about it and also recognize it's out of my control. So what can I control and
Yeah.
do that thing?
And I'm not saying don't feel the emotions because
Mhm.
and I'll give you another really big family event. So, same daughter. So, when she was 16, she was diagnosed with Crohn's. So,
Okay.
she was the girl who wanted to travel the world and eat everything in sight. Like that was her thing. Trust me, she still does that. It's not an issue. But
Mhm.
when she was first diagnosed, she was like, why did this happen to me? Right?
Yep.
I mean, we have six kids. Why did this happen to me? Why am I going to struggle with this? And I said, you know what? Again, you have a choice. And I said, here's my thought, and you decide what you want to do with this. But I want you to be angry, be sad, cry it out, scream it out,
Mhm.
whatever you need to do, and then say, I'm going to do this for 5 days, whatever it is. Pick a date
Mhm.
and say, I'm going to move forward because you can get stuck there forever. Do you want to be the person who wallows in your sorrow and in their sorrow for the rest of their life? Or do you want to
Mhm.
say, yeah, that sucks. This is what I'm going to do with it? And she said, oh, that's a really interesting thought. And so she did her screaming and crying, and she had to go
Mhm.
on we called it the white trash diet. She had to eat white bread, white rice, like
Mhm.
everything, it was, and she was like, this really sucks. And I was like, yeah, it really sucks. Okay. So when we're done with the white trash diet, what are you going to have next? So that was kind of how I think a lot of what happens in our family now, like we look at it that way. Okay,
Yeah.
feel all the feels and then say on this date I'm going to move forward because I don't want to be stuck here. Like I don't want
Yeah.
my life to be about I never did anything because I got stuck in a moment that I let it define me when it didn't have
Mhm.
to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I love that. So what I'm hearing you say is like when faced with a challenge, like allow yourself to feel all the feelings that come up with it. And you have to find ways to move forward and push through. So you just gave a really good example of like, hey, we're setting this date. Let's make a change that date. Do you have any other like words of advice or practical strategies on how people can push through and continue to grow despite facing challenges or adversity?
So, um, I think one of the biggest things is that we really focus so much on changing who we are,
Mm,
right? We need to get this done to ourselves. We need the bigger car, we need the bigger bank account, we need to, and for me, it's really taking that step back and saying we don't need to change who we are. We need to change the way we see ourselves
mm,
and giving ourselves credit for the things that we're already doing. And that comes from how we talk to ourselves. And so I talk about positive affirmations, but the other thing that I love to do is evening gratitudes, even when I'm
mm,
having the worst day possible. And again, I have a lot of them. I've got six
mhm.
kids. So like things fall apart at any moment. You think like, "Oh my gosh, I've got it all together." And then I have something to do and all of a sudden I get the phone call and I'm like, "Oh crap, what now?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's that before I go to bed, because I struggle with insomnia, that I
Okay.
really make sure that I find something during that day that I was thankful for.
Hmm.
Could be the cup of coffee that I had. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but it's that mindset piece of saying that, okay, I'm not going to go to bed like miserable because I could if I wanted
Yeah.
to, right? But
Absolutely.
it's really saying, okay, what am I thankful for right now?
Hmm.
And I've had people say, well, what if I'm not thankful for anything? I was like, okay, yes, you are. Take a step
Yeah.
back and really look at, did you get a meal today? Well,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay, what was the best thing you ate today? Okay,
Hmm.
let's be thankful for that. Like whatever it is, so that, again, it's about telling your mind that you're good. And
Hmm.
that whole appreciation piece for me has also been life changing because I used to go to bed like, oh, this sucks. Like,
Hmm.
and does that do anything good for me? No, no.
No. No.
So it's really incorporating things every day that help me say, okay, yeah, you can get through this. Like you've
Yeah.
gotten through really hard things
Hmm.
and you can keep going. So what are you thankful for? What are the good things you're going to tell yourself tomorrow morning? And, that has really changed my life. It's the women that I work with, same
Hmm.
kind of thing, because a lot of times we get stuck in our routine. We don't think about
Yep.
those things, right? Until someone
Hmm.
says, oh, and you're like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. And
Yeah.
so I think it's so important to really take a look at where we are. And yes, it could be a horrible situation right now, but there's always something about yourself that you can build up. There's always something in your day that you can be thankful for.
Hmm. And one thing I love about pretty much every single tip you have given so far is they're very small things that you can integrate into your daily life. Like nothing that you have shared is like, oh, this big overhaul. Like, yes, okay, if we go back, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is a big
Yeah.
task to take on, but like gratitude, positive affirmations, boundary setting, mindset shifts, like changing the way you talk to yourself, allowing yourself to feel emotions. Those are things that we can do every single day. And what I'm hearing is it's like those small things that you integrate are what's going to add up to help you be your most confident
Mhm.
self.
When you put them all together, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, this didn't make a big deal. When you put them all together, it will be life changing. And so, yes, my Kilimanjaro example is an extreme example, but what's your Kilimanjaro? Like, what's the thing that you've been saying, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not capable of this, because you are. And
Mhm.
so, really taking a look at that. And everybody has a mountain in their life that they're climbing, right? Everybody has something that they're struggling with, and really looking beyond that and saying, okay, how do I tackle this? How do I accomplish this? And not saying, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you
Mhm.
can. You have to believe that you can. You have to take the steps towards it and you have to do it, right? Do the things you think you can't.
Absolutely. So you've given us so many great tips on how to build confidence. And this might seem like a silly question, but I feel like we have to address it. Like,
Mm.
why is it so important for people to own their confidence? Like, what are the benefits of us being confident within ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, you show up completely differently in your life, right?
Mhm.
There's actually like there's really funny statistics to me, like, well, funny, I mean, important statistics, uh, that confident people earn 20% more than people who aren't. I mean, that's a crazy
Wow.
thing, right? There's a,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and then it's like 96% of hiring managers say that confidence is one of the most important things they look for, but most people struggle with it. 80% of women struggle with
Mhm.
low self-esteem, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many statistics across the board of, the things that we struggle with. So it's really about flipping that script and saying, these are the things that could happen. Like our
Mhm.
relationships are better, our job is better. When you walk in, the other thing I like to talk about is the idea of it's called kitchen table. I call it kitchen table leadership.
Okay.
We've been told this very narrow view of what leadership is. It's the corner office, it's the title, it's the boardroom.
Hmm.
But leadership is what happens behind the scenes. It's the messy moments. It's the things we do every single day. And so when we see ourselves differently in that, then we show up differently. So confidence is exactly that. So we show up differently in our workplace. We show up differently in our relationships. We show up differently, not just with our spouse, but with our children. Like when
Hmm.
we feel good about something, the way we talk to ourselves or talk to other people, we're no longer defensive about things, right?
Hmm.
We're like, oh, yeah, let's discuss that instead of being like, oh, no, no, that wasn't
Hmm.
me. And I think one of the other things that is really important is how we, what our kids see. So
Yeah.
if you're a parent, right, it's you can say all you want all day long, but how you behave, like that modeling piece is so important. So
Hmm.
when you show up confidently to something, when you're talking to someone and you're not being defensive, that's what your kids learn.
Hmm.
But, for a long time, what my kids learned about me is that the way I talked to myself in the mirror, I treated myself like crap. And they're
Yeah.
like, you know, my daughter called me out one day and she said, you need to stop, right? You're giving me a
Wow.
complex.
Oh,
How do you
wow.
expect me to love my body when you don't even like your own? So, really being able to take that step back and saying, okay, when we build confidence, we show up differently in the world and we're much happier too. Because
Hmm.
one of the biggest things for me is that I don't look at other women and say, oh, I wish that were my life, right?
Hmm.
I look at them and say, wow, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Completely different mindset than what I used to have because it's not that is never going to be my life, right?
Yeah.
So why not celebrate other women instead of saying, oh gosh, poor me? And
Hmm.
so that's a huge thing with confidence is how we show up in every aspect of our lives. And
Yeah.
it's not about ego. It has nothing to do with ego, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to make that clear because it's not about walking to the room and saying, ah,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's being comfortable in your skin no matter who you're with, no matter
Hmm.
where you are. Like you're like, okay, I deserve to be here instead of, ooh, this is not the right place for me.
Yeah. I love that so much. And Simone, I've loved this conversation so much. So as we're getting towards the end to wrap up, if anyone's listening and they're struggling with their own confidence, what words of advice or encouragement do you have for them?
Call me. No.
I love it.
Call me. Um, Really, it is, and I think I've already said it, but gosh, you don't need to change who you are. You need to
Mhm.
change the way you see yourself. It really starts with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, treat yourself like you would your best friend. Stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking. Again, they're not thinking about you because they're very
Hmm.
busy in their own lives. And
Yeah.
so when you're worried about that, the only person that's, negatively affected by that is you because they
Hmm.
don't even know it's happening. So, I mean, you have incredible value. There is only one you in the world, and you need to celebrate that, right?
Hmm.
The small things you do every day, they deserve celebration. I mean, one big thing that I do, I'm a big list person. I make my
Okay.
list on pink paper because that way it doesn't get mixed in. That's my life hack. It doesn't get mixed in with the kid stuff. But I'm big about crossing something off the list. And when I
Mhm.
do that, I celebrate it. And if I did something and it wasn't on the list, I'll write it on the list and then I'll cross it off the list and celebrate it. because
I've
those
done that
little
before.
things, yeah, those little things are really important. So
Mhm.
there's so many things you can do every day, that little micro steps, that if you're struggling, say, okay, start with one thing. Start with how
Mhm.
you talk to yourself first thing in the morning. Like, make it a great day, because you have that choice.
Yeah.
And no matter what your situation is, you have that choice.
I love it. I love it. Well, Simone, as we're wrapping up, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you would like to touch on, revisit, highlight? Any last thoughts before, obviously, I will ask you where people can
Hmm.
find you in your book and everything?
I don't think so. I mean, I live a chaotic life with six, well, again, almost an empty nester,
Yeah.
about to be a grandmother.
Oh,
Very
congratulations.
excited too, yes. But, whatever comes your way, you can overcome it. You can
Mhm.
move through it, and you can have an amazing life, but it
Yeah,
starts with you.
absolutely. So on that note, where can people connect with you? Where can people buy actually both your books,
Yeah.
this book and your other one, or any other things you want to plug or add that I can add to the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on my website, SimoneKnego.com, SimoneKnego. Social media, basically, it's Simone Knego everywhere. And my book that just came out is called Real Confidence, A Simple Guide to Go from Unsure to Unshakable. You can find that at realconfidencebook.com. My first book was called, or is called, because it's still out there, The Extraordinary Unordinary You. Follow your own path, discover your own journey. You can find that on Amazon, any online retailer. And then my podcast with my daughter is called Her Unshakable Confidence. And we drop an episode every Tuesday. And come take a listen, because it's a really fun experience. And I think that's pretty much everything.
I love it. And I will put all of that in the show notes so people have direct ways to connect with you, listen to your podcast, purchase your books. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on, having this conversation. I've gained a lot of good tips. It's also made me reflect on areas maybe I need to practice confidence in my life. So I just appreciate you sharing your knowledge and skills and everything that you have learned through your personal journey and with the women you have worked with. So just thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here.
And thank you, the listeners, for joining for today's episode of Psych Talk. And I will catch you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Psych Talk. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow me on all socials at Jessica Lee, PhD, and the podcast at Psych Talk Podcast on Instagram.